A father picks up his three little daughters for what was supposed to be a normal weekend visit. Just a few days later, all three girls are found dead. And the father? He disappears without a trace. For months, hundreds of officers, helicopters, drones, K-9 units, and the FBI searched mountains and forests across Washington state. Everyone asked the same question. Was Travis Decker still alive? Or had he vanished forever? But this wasn't just another murder case. It became one of the biggest manhunts in Washington state's history, and it exposed painful questions about child custody, mental health, and whether this tragedy could have been prevented. It was May 30, 2025, in Wenatchee, Washington. For Whitney Decker, this Friday looked like many others. Under a court-approved parenting plan, her ex-husband, Travis Decker, arrived to pick up their three daughters, Peyton, 9, Evelyn, 8, and Olivia, 5, for a scheduled visit. He was expected to return them by 8 p.m. that evening. At first, nothing seemed unusual. But as the evening passed, the girls never came home. By 8:30 p.m., Whitney knew something was wrong and contacted police. At that moment, no one could have imagined that this missing person report would soon become one of America's most heartbreaking true crime stories. After Travis Decker and Whitney Decker separated, the two shared custody of their three daughters under a court-approved parenting plan. Friends and family described the girls as energetic, loving, and very close to both parents. Travis was a former U.S. Army soldier who had struggled with personal and mental health challenges after leaving military service. According to court records and statements reported by authorities, concerns had been raised about his stability, financial difficulties, and inconsistent housing situation. Despite these concerns, he continued to have scheduled visits with his daughters under the existing custody arrangement. In the weeks before the tragedy, Whitney reportedly expressed concerns about Travis's behavior and asked the court for changes to the parenting plan. However, the regular visitation schedule remained in place. On May 30, 2025, Travis arrived to pick up his daughters for a planned visit. It appeared to be another routine exchange. But when the agreed return time passed and the girls did not come home, Whitney became increasingly worried. She contacted law enforcement and reported that Travis had failed to return the children as required. At first, investigators treated the case as a missing person and custody matter. Officers began trying to locate Travis's vehicle and trace his movements. No one yet knew that the search was about to turn into one of the most heartbreaking criminal investigations in Washington state. As the hours passed, concern quickly turned into urgency. Investigators began tracking Travis Decker's known movements and searching the areas where he was believed to have traveled with his daughters. Law enforcement agencies across Washington worked together, asking the public to report any sightings of Travis or his pickup truck. For several days, officers searched campgrounds, forest roads, and remote locations throughout the region. Then, everything changed. Investigators located Travis Decker's abandoned pickup truck near a remote campground in Chelan County. The truck was empty. A search of the surrounding area led officers to a heartbreaking discovery. The bodies of Peyton, Evelyn, and Olivia were found nearby. The missing person investigation immediately became a homicide investigation. Authorities later said the children had died from suffocation, and Travis Decker became the primary suspect. The news shocked communities across Washington and quickly made national headlines. Neighbors, volunteers, and people across the country struggled to understand how a routine custody visit could end in such a devastating tragedy. Vigils were held to remember the three sisters, while investigators focused on one urgent question. Where was Travis Decker? Despite finding his vehicle, there was no sign of him. Detectives believed he had fled into the rugged wilderness surrounding the area. Search teams expanded their operation using helicopters, drones, K-9 units, tracking specialists, and federal resources. The FBI joined the investigation as the search grew into one of the largest manhunts in the state's recent history. With every passing day, the mystery deepened. Had Travis carefully planned his escape? Or was he hiding somewhere in the mountains, hoping never to be found? The search would continue for months, keeping the entire nation watching for answers. ###. Following the discovery of the three girls, law enforcement agencies launched an extensive search for Travis Decker. Investigators from local police departments, the Chelan County Sheriff's Office, the Washington State Patrol, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshal Service worked together to locate him. Search teams used helicopters, drones, K-9 units, tracking specialists, and aircraft to examine forests, mountain trails, and remote wilderness areas. Authorities also asked the public to report any possible sightings. Hundreds of tips were received, but many were investigated and found not to be connected to the case. According to investigators, Travis Decker had military training and experience spending time outdoors. Because of this, search teams considered the possibility that he could survive for an extended period in remote terrain, making the search especially difficult. As weeks passed without an arrest, investigators continued gathering evidence from electronic devices, witness interviews, and forensic examinations. Search warrants were executed, and law enforcement followed every credible lead available. The case remained in the national spotlight as communities across the United States continued to mourn the deaths of Peyton, Evelyn, and Olivia. Memorial events and public tributes honored the three sisters while investigators remained focused on locating the suspect and determining exactly what had happened. Months later, authorities announced a major development in the investigation after human remains discovered in a remote area were identified through DNA testing as belonging to Travis Decker. Following that identification, officials stated that the criminal investigation into him had concluded. Although investigators answered the question of where Travis Decker had ended up, the tragedy left many broader questions about family court processes, mental health support, and child safety that continue to be discussed today. The Travis Decker case shocked people across the United States because it involved the deaths of three young children during what was expected to be a routine custody visit. The investigation brought together local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies in one of Washington state's largest search operations. Months later, authorities confirmed through DNA testing that human remains found in a remote area belonged to Travis Decker, bringing the search to an end. Even though the search concluded, the loss of Peyton, Evelyn, and Olivia cannot be undone. Their deaths deeply affected their family, friends, and the wider community. The case has also prompted continued discussion about child welfare, custody arrangements, mental health support, and how warning signs are evaluated by different agencies. While opinions differ on these issues, the tragedy has led many people to ask whether similar cases can be prevented in the future. As with many true crime cases, it is important to remember that behind every headline are real people whose lives were permanently changed. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary informative, consider subscribing for more carefully researched true crime stories based on verified information. If you have thoughts about this case, please share them respectfully in the comments while keeping the victims and their loved ones in mind. See you in the next video.